Good morning, everybody. Mike Fiducia over here with Accordant. Thanks for joining us for another one of our estimating webinars. Today we're going to talk about progressive estimating and how we handle that in our estimating solutions and how we can reduce your estimating time, increase efficiency, and accuracy. So today our presenter is Mark Reich, Sage's Senior Sales Engineer, over 20 years experience with Sage's estimating products. So definitely going to bring you guys a ton of value today and show you the best way to handle progressive estimates today. So here's what we're going to cover. So let's just talk about progressive estimating for a second. For those who may not be familiar, progressive estimating is when typically in our design build contractors and even expanding from there, you get a set of plans that isn't complete, right? And no set of plans is ever 100% complete. You guys know that. But maybe now you're getting sets of drawings that are 50, 60% complete, and you need to start building your estimates. We're going to show you how to start that from that first set of drawings and then handle those revisions and be able to compare your base estimate versus your final revisions and what you're going to ultimately submit to the client. So we're going to show you how to do that today with Takeoff through our 2D solution, eTakeoff. And also, if you guys are using 3D takeoff software, we're going to show you how to do it through Navisworks. And also just want to let you guys know on Thursday, if you have not received the information, we do have another webinar on models in Sage Estimating. So any of our commercial GCs out there and even some of our specialty trade contractors, that's one you don't want to miss. So that is Thursday, 9 a.m., again, a little bit earlier than today's. So let's talk about a progressive estimating sequence. So you get your first set of plans, right, and you do your takeoff. What you're going to do is hopefully use eTakeoff Bridge, which is bridging eTakeoff to Sage Estimating, and you're going to send your quantities to your estimator. You're going to send it to your live estimate, right? First time you're bringing over your quantities from your takeoff solution. Then you're going to save a version of that as your base bid, right? And you're not going to make any changes from there because that's going to have all your original quantities. But then what happens, right? You get another set of plans, another set of revisions. So how do you handle those moving forward? Because you don't want to change those original quantities in your base bid. So what we're going to do is make a copy of that, and we're going to have now our Rev 1 estimate, where we can make changes, and we're still making it through our live estimate, right? So that's where the changes are coming through. We're not changing those original numbers in our base bid. So Mark Reich is going to take us through this sequence in the software, both bringing over quantities from, again, 2D eTakeoff and Navisworks, which is our 3D solution. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark. And guys, just before we get started, there is a questions feature in our webinar today, so please feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation, and we will either address them during or at the end. But please ask away, and we will be happy to answer those for you. So Mark, with that, I will turn it over to you to get started.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Let me show my screen here.
We see you, Mark.
Yeah, I just turned it off. Are you seeing the right? Well, let me pick the right screen here. There we go.
Seeing your desktop right now.
Yeah, so now you should be.
Yep.
Now you see my eTakeoff. Well, thank you guys all for taking time this morning to take a look at this. This is something that is of interest for a lot of people. Whether you're a design build contractor, a negotiated contractor, or hard bid contractor, or a specialty contractor, you know, you start a project and it changes as you get before you get to the end, and you want to come up with a final number. And you want to have some control over that project, and one of the best ways to have control of that project is to have different snippets or different images of each progress that you make in that estimate, you know, where there's before changes and then other things. So you've got something, you know, that's legal, but also you've got something that kind of tells you a pattern of what's going on, and you can always revert back and so forth. So that's what we're going to show you, how simple that is here with Sage and some of our products. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the 2D. I'm not going to explain a lot about 2D because this isn't a seminar or webinar on 2D. It's actually, I'm going to use this to start to create an estimate from scratch, because in 2D I can do all my takeoffs and I can actually produce an estimate. So, and there's a dynamic link, by the way, between 2D and 3D with every object I take off and every line item, and you'll see that because we're going to go back and make a change in our 2D project because a change came up. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over. So I'll pick up my bridge, and it says, do you want a bridge between this and your estimate? And I haven't even got an estimate, so I'm going to produce one from here. And I'm going to go ahead and call this the La Quinta project. La Quinta. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create an estimate. So we don't even need to have an estimate created to do this, because in our takeoff tools we can create the estimate automatically from takeoff, and you'll see that as we go through. So I'm going to call this the La Quinta live project. I'm using my database. I'm telling where it's stored, whether it's on my local drive or my network drive. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. I'm going to go ahead and accept this, and what it's going to do is it's going to take the database that we decided to use and put it right here. Now, I'm not going to do any mapping because we only have to map once. I'm going to go straight to automatic mode, which is the advantage of this. It's going to go out and find every item I've taken off on every page right here, all my different slabs and so forth, and I'm going to go ahead and send those over to my estimate. So it's going to actually create line items for every one of these in my estimate, all 96 things that we did in takeoff, so I can have an estimate to go from without having to waste a lot of time and having you guys, me building an estimate by hand. So, and this is literally how it works. After you use this the first time and map it once, after that, I just do takeoffs and it's automatically mapped, and it will do this automatic mode we're talking about. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and open up that new estimate we just created. And it will open up that estimate, and let me go ahead and move this out of the way. And here's that new estimate, the La Quinta Live, where we have all of our information here. And we can consolidate things, so I can combine them to get it consolidated. There it is in CSI. We have all different types of sorting and so forth, and that's great. So we can actually add sequences here if I want to. And let me turn on all these other sequences, because we can slice and dice our estimate. Now, all this information came from takeoff. I didn't do any manual entry or pick from my database, because I associated my takeoff with my database when I mapped it the first time. And so now I have different ways I can look at my estimate. But before I go through my estimate here, what I want to do is I actually want to show what we want to do progressive. So here's my first blush estimate. You know, I've got it live, but what I want to do is I'm going to come up here to File, and I'm going to copy this estimate, the first thing I'm going to do. And I'm going to go ahead, and that's live, and I'm going to call it base estimate. So I'm just going to say this is my base estimate, if I can spell correctly. And so I'll hit OK, and it's going to say yes, close this one, so I can make a copy of it. And then what will happen is it'll come back and it'll have a copy of that estimate that's now called live base estimate. Well, let's come back to that other estimate. Let's go ahead and have them both up here. So let me open up the original live estimate, which is right here. So now I have both of them here, and I'm going to go ahead and focus on the live estimate right now. This is just my copy for my base estimate. So I'm not going to play with that one. That's an image of my base estimate without any changes. Now we want to play some changes with this here. We can come over here and take a look at our assemblies, which we have all of our assemblies. I can actually look at my estimate over here and say, well, let's see who's contributed to this, because our takeoff tools are multi-user. So I can actually collapse all these, and I can see that I've got 4 people that contributed to that. And I go to Judd, and he's done all these slabs, and we have a change on one of these slab items here. So I pick this slab, particular slab, there's my makeup of all my items, and there's my quantities. So here I'm about to make my first change in this estimate. We got a change order or an addenda that this particular slab here is going to be an equipment slab and we need to make it a thicker slab. So if we can do it as a thicker slab, then we can do that. So what I can do here is each one of these line items is actually tethered to the takeoff. So I can right click on any one of these line items and I'm going to go back to my takeoff. It'll actually go back to my takeoff. It'll bring up my drawing here and it will actually pick up that slab. So when I go down here, there's the slab that we're putting a piece of equipment on. And here is the information for that slab right now. So we're going to make some changes to that, specifically some spec changes here. So I'm going to come over here, and over here underneath this, we're actually going to change this to 4 inches of gravel and 6 inches of sand, and then we're going to go to 12 inches here, and we're going to change this to 3,500 PSI. So Michael, you might have your microphone on. You may want to put that on mute because I'm hearing someone talking in the background. So we're going to change that, and then I'm also going to change this to regular concrete or to fiber mesh maybe. So we changed some specs for this based on the addenda that we did. Now, because that's dynamically linked, I changed it in my takeoff for that particular slab right here. All I have to do is hit this refresh button, and it's going to go out and check everything I've taken off with the object. It's going to say, are there any changes? And it found this slab, which is still highlighted, and it showed the changes here. Now, I can accept those changes. Okay, well, let's go ahead and accept that change. So we're going to go ahead and add that change over to this slab, so we replaced it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on here, and I'm going to notate it by putting it in the title, say changed as per addenda number 1. And then I may want to actually put a memo on this that I can actually say changed as per addenda number 1 by Mark, and whatever else I want to put on there. So that's what I've done, and all I've done is just made that change, and now I'm going to go send this back to the estimate. So I'm going to send that over. How do we handle that? But before we go over there, let's say that this drawing changed, and what I noticed on this here, let me go ahead and reduce this down here. I'll bring it back. That they've decided that we need to actually put this on piers. The soil test came back, and we've got to put some piers on here. We can't just put this in the dirt. The soil's not suitable for that. It's a 3-story building, so we need to put these piers on here. So I've got to add that to this part of the estimate. It wasn't in the first part. I now have to add that. So let's do that. So I'm going to go over here to my drawing feature, and I'm going to go ahead and hit start, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight this right here. This is a patented feature we have in Takeoff. I'm going to highlight that feature. I'm going to say I'm going to search for that section that I'm searching for, and I'm going to go select it from my database. It's in my GC database. It's under concrete. It says foundations, and that red symbol is going to replace it. So 1, 2, 3. Pick my symbol, pick my search area, pick the item, and hit search. That's all I have to do. So I'm going to zoom back out here. You can see over here on the right, it's searching. We have the ability, I'll just put a plug here, we have the ability to search for any item on one page or multiple pages that you want, and it's very, very powerful, especially if you're in the electrical and looking for fixtures or anything else. This works great, or door schedules, all that stuff. So let me go ahead and double click here. This binocular says it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and double click, and here are all the items that it found, even with the busyness here. And if I want to review that, I can hit review, and you can see spot on, it found every one that I was looking for. So I just did my takeoff, added that to this estimate here. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. So I'll go back here to see these, and I'll go ahead and accept that. It'll add it to my line estimate. So I added 244 right here. I'm going to click on this so I can fill in the spec information, and specs say it's an average of 20 feet deep. They're 2 feet in diameter, and it's 3,500 PSI concrete. So I'll just put that in here, and then I'm done. Now, when I go back and I bring up my bridge right here, it's not in my review mode. I can actually hit automatic because I've actually used this before, and it will find those items. So now I'm just going to go ahead and send those over to the estimate, and I've added those to my Rev 1 estimate. Let's go back here and go to my estimate here and reduce that. So now in my Rev 1 estimate, that's my copy of my base bid, my Rev 1 estimate, here is the change that we've made here on my Rev 1. Now what we do is we keep track, if I go to review this assembly here for this, we keep track of an audit. So here are the passes that we did. If I right click and hit view audit, you'll see here's the first pass, the date and time that I did it with my entries. Since we made a change, we backed out that, brought it to 0 and put in my new. So we went from 3 to 4, 3 to 6, 8 to 12, 4,000 to 3,500. And this is a true audit. You cannot affect this. This is whether you did it right or wrong, it's going to show here. And then if you notice here, there's the memo that we passed forward. So you have the ability with these tools to go back and forth between different variations of your estimate and keep track of all that information. Let me turn off the total down here. I don't really care about that. And then this just tells me, in this case, because we're doing an assembly, that that slab cost me this much. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. So what I just did is, now that's what we have in this assembly and the change. Now, if I want to see the difference between that, I can bring my base estimate down here and put them side by side. Let's take a look at by assembly, and we're over here by assembly also. So let's come down to that change here, and that's that first slab on that deal here. Let's come down here, and here's that first slab right here. And I can actually compare straight across those slabs. So I can see the difference here in value. So there's my base estimate. Let me expand it out here. I had this many cubic yards. Here's where it's gone up to. There's my cost per cubic yard for labor. There's my new cost per cubic yard for labor. So I can see this. So this is my Rev 1 estimate, or this is my base estimate, and this is my live estimate. So I want to save my live estimate here as my Rev 1. So I'm going to come here to copy. And I'm going to call this Rev 1. And I'll close my original estimate so I can make a copy of it. And it'll have my base bid, base estimate here. It'll open up right next to it my Rev 1 estimate. Maybe. Oops, let me go back. Shut me out of my estimating product for some reason. I've got a lot of stuff on my, I may have run out of memory because I got Navisworks showing here too. Yes, I'll recalculate. You'll notice I never had to save anything. So there's my Rev 1 estimate. Here, my Rev 1. Let's go open up the other one. Let's open up the base estimate right here, because it shut down, it did that recalculation. You notice we don't save anything, it automatically saves for me, so everything is here. And then let's go open up my live estimate right here. So now I have all three estimates here. And if I want to, I can actually put my live estimate right here, and here's my base estimate right here. So I can actually see my live, my base, and my rev, and I can compare all three across. My live estimate, I'll make some additional changes. So that's really kind of progressive estimating as it relates to, and I can go to any particular sort that we want to here on each one, and they'll sort based on those fields so I can compare them all the way across. I also have the ability in my reports to compare up to 10 estimates and do a variance between two. So if I wanted to know what's the variance between my base estimate and the Rev 1, I can do it at any level. I could just pick an area like that slab and just do it between that area that we had here, or I can actually do it at every level and at any detail. So you got lots of options. That comes in handy, especially if you're doing negotiated or design build, because the owner wants to know what changed and where are we at and what's the progress here. And that kind of gives you a picture of each estimate that I'm doing that I can do. And this can be as many as you want. Now, if you got a bigger screen, you can actually compare more on screen if you want to. So this is how I would do this in a 2D type estimate. So let's go over here and let me shut these down so we don't have any estimate open. Let's go open up Navisworks. And so now I have a 3D model here, and I want to run my first estimate through this here. So I'm going to go ahead and start my bridge product that we have here. And we're going to create, and this is the Stein building. So I'm just going to say Stein office. And then I'm going to come down here and we're going to create a new estimate for the Stein office. Use the same database, send that over. I'm going to hit OK. And there's my database. Now here in the Stein office, let me just pull this down here. I can expand my office here. So let's go and we're going to take off some walls, for example. So if I expand the walls here in basic walls, there's all my interior walls that we have here. Now, if I want to just see my interior walls here, obviously I can just say show selected and I get to see all my interior walls. We haven't done any takeoff yet, but one of the things that I want to do here is I want to append some information on here. So I'm going to append a description and I'm going to call it interior floor 1. So that means it's going to add that to each one of these. And I've got that already added to the other ones. And then here's my exterior walls that we've got. And if I come down to the second floor underneath that, and I look at there's that second floor curved wall that we have. And then here are the interior walls that we have on the interior for the second floor. And if I want to, I can actually just pick one wall and do that. But I'm going to go back here and just look at the whole model. So again, if I've mapped this once, I load my model up, I actually can do an automatic mode because these are already there and it found my curved walls, all my interior walls, first floor, second floor, and then my interior first floor that we just assigned here. So those are already done because I've actually mapped it once. And literally, to map it once, you're going to do that in a project at the same time, and it's going to take you maybe an extra 2 minutes, literally an extra 2 minutes to do the mapping. And then after that, you get to use this automatic mode because I don't have to map it because it's a learning system. So it learns itself. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over to the estimate. There's 69 things, and we're just doing the walls, interior and exterior for this particular project. Just to save time here. And that's going to go over and create another estimate in 3D. But now how I can handle changes on this one is slightly different than I can in 2D. And because I can bring in a new model. A lot of time in design build or BIM, I'm dealing with a model and I've got a model that's pretty general and I don't have the specifics on it yet. So we're going to go ahead and let's go back to this estimate here, shut this down. And there's my Stein office of what we've got here. Go to my home key. Let's consolidate these so we have these consolidated. So there's my Stein office. Again, I can bring up all my sequences if I want to. I can turn all these on and they all have stuff in them. Notice when I've done this, I've not done any real estimating yet because all these are coming from my database. And I don't necessarily want this crew here because maybe I don't use crews. So I can actually have different layouts that we can do. I can do it without crews. And it gets rid of the crew. Now this is the layout that I want to have that's here. And again, I can go look at my assemblies as it relates to this wall here. Now, if I want to, we can right-click on this. Same thing, review my audit, just like we did in 2D. And I can see what my audit is and all my answers and so forth. But what I can do is I also can go back to my model and right-click on this particular item here. Let's do this one up here. And let's go ahead and drill down. And it will, again, just like it did in 2D, it'll open up my model. It'll open up and find that item and that object. There's the item it found, and there's that wall. And if I hit select, show selected, there's the wall we just went to. So there's a dynamic link for every item in my estimate back to the model, whether it's 2D or 3D. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to load a new model. So this is the first model we have. And the second model, someone just sent us the second model. So I'm going to go ahead and hit compare model. And I'm going to answer some questions here. Do you want to go ahead and review? Yes, we do. Where's that model? I'll change it to the file I'm looking for. And there's the Rev1 model of the same building with changes in it. So I'm going to double click that. Do you want to compare that? Yes, I do. Then it's going to load it, and you'll see the model change. And you'll see the first thing you see, this curved wall has got a little taller. So let me expand these out again because I want to show you something. You know, changes come in 3 different flavors as you're dealing with change, especially in design build or negotiated work. There are changes that are actual changes. Then there's deletions, and then there's additions. So those are the 3 levels. Now, if I want to, what I can do here in this new model, I can say, well, let's go ahead and hide those things we sent over to estimating. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to hide them. Then everything that's not on my estimate or that hasn't been sent over is showing me here. So I get a visual audit of what's been sent over. Now, what I want to do here is I want to actually run through this change here. So I'm going to say, go ahead and compare those 2 models and show me what's different. So it's going to go through all those assignments, and it's going to come back with pencils to say what's different, and then these have been deleted. Now, I don't have it set up to accept all these at one time, which we could do, but most people have it set up so that you can go through each one, and I'll just go through a couple to show you, give you the idea. So you'll notice that if I go to this one right here, double-click on this one here, and let me go back to highlight this. So let's highlight that one, and you know that that's what's highlighted when I double click on that. That's the item, so you can see there's a link between us. And there's the difference. See, it already found the difference for me because it said this is 12 inches higher. So now we can accept that if we want to. And I can do a change on this if I want and say changed by owner. I can do a note on here again and say changed by Mark for the per owner's request. Then I'll send that over to the estimate. So I can go through and do all these changes here. Let's see the wall that we're deleting here. So if I click on that, you'll notice here that it's zeroed out. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that change here by that flashing red, and I'm going to send that to the estimate, and that's going to delete that from my estimate. And I've got one more here that I'll do, and we'll accept that, and we'll send that to the estimate. That's going to delete. And I can go through here. Now, if I don't want to sort through that, I can actually just say, just show me the things that have changed. Don't show me anything that hasn't changed. So I can continue to go through here, but for sake of time, you get the idea where I can actually make these changes and then go back and change that estimate. Now, and one thing I just realized is I didn't make a copy of that. I don't believe I did. So that's my fault. Also, if I show what we have, what's highlighted, what's been taken off, everything in gray that's been highlighted has been taken off. Here are some walls that haven't been taken off. So if I want to do automatic mode, here are the walls that were added here to my takeoff that are on this. Let me do this here, and let's hide assign so I can show you here. Here are the walls we sent over to estimating, but here's some walls that were added. There's 2 walls that were added on the first floor, and there were 4 walls added here. And when I hit my refresh, there are the 5 walls that it found, or the 6 walls that we have between that. Now I can just send those over. So we handled all three changes in the second model. And so we've deleted some walls, we've added some walls, and we've made some changes to walls. So now when we go back over, we go back to my estimate, and we'll reduce this down, we'll hit OK. And what I did was a cardinal rule is I didn't save that as that. So it doesn't work if you don't save it, so I apologize. But I would have the other one that was live and this one that was the revision, or the other one that was the base and then the live one to do this here. So, but you can see how we made those changes. And if you can see that I made this change right here, and I would have copied that to do that. So it's a very procedural process. It doesn't automatically copy. So this will show you when I forget to do that, it won't do that. Now I can actually save this as Rev 1, and that'd be my starting point unless I wanted to transfer it all back again. But it wouldn't take long to go back and transfer that original one and create my original and then go do this change, because that whole thing happened in less than 10 minutes in front of you. And that's the whole process. But what I wanted to do is get by to let you know that we can keep different snapshots of each estimate as you go if you use that copy command up here, where you copy it and then wait till you do changes. But your first time you do that, it's your live estimate, and that's the one you're always working with, so it's your working estimate, and the rest of them are snapshots, and then you can do your comparison. And that's a very effective way to do progressive estimating and keep control of it, especially if you got to go back and say, take a look at Rev 6 and Rev 2. What's the difference between those two? We may want to make some changes and create a Rev 8. So you can do that. You can do a lot of things. And we can do a lot more go a lot deeper than this if you want to, but for the sake of time, I want to make sure that we've got time for questions and answers. And if you want to delve into this deeper, we'd be more than happy to set up a one-on-one with you and your company to go over this as it relates to you, to see how you might use this. If you have our product, show you how you can use this because you've already got these features and so forth. If you don't have this product, then we'd love to go over and show you all the other things that it can do for you in a personalized presentation with you one-on-one with you and your company. And that's something you can set up with Michael. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you, Michael.
Mark, thanks so much. So just want to open up the floor for some questions. We don't have any right now, but let's give it a minute or two, let everybody digest and see if there are any questions.
Do you want to share your PowerPoint?
Attendees. Yep, going to in just a second.
Okay. So we're waiting for questions, I take it.
Yes.
Okay. And don't be shy. Ask any question. We'll try to answer that for you.
We do have one from Heather. How is the initial database established?
Well, there's a number of things. You can always purchase a database, and we've got literally over 100 databases from various database developers available to you. We have all the RS Means databases if you're doing government work and so forth, but we also have several third-party database developers that have been building databases for us for about 25 to 30 years, so almost as long as I've been working with this. We also have consultants, and I know Accordant's one of our top business partners and has one of our top consultants. They can do custom databases where they'll actually build one for you. You can actually, in our product, we have a database wizard that will allow you to go ahead and create your group phases and phases. So if you wanted to follow the old CSI format or new CSI format, we'll automatically build that structure. And you can actually do your estimate with one-time items. You'll see a new feature coming out in January that will allow you to create traces in eTakeoff, and those traces then will become items in your estimate and build your database just by saying what I want to take off. So we've got all kinds of things that we have, and a couple that we're working on that will help you create a personalized database much quicker into using this. I mean, our goal is to be able to have you buy this and use it the same day you buy it. And for the most part, we can do that. So, and then build your database as you go. So there's a variety of options for you that you can do. I hope that answers your question.
I think it did. No other questions have come in. I'll give it about another 30 seconds, and we're just going to wrap up, guys. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days or day today to review progressive estimating with us. And again, Thursday, 9 a.m., we have another webinar on models. So it's going to be a fun one. Hope everybody can make it. If you can't, please register so that way we can send you out a copy of the meeting. And after this, we are going to follow up with everybody. We will reach out, give you a call, and hopefully schedule some one-on-ones with you guys to review and go into the solution in more detail. So with that, I don't believe we have any more questions. So that would conclude our webinar. Hope everybody has a great day. And Mark, thanks again.
Appreciate it. You bet.